In 1994, I met Don Americo Yabar. He's a renowned spiritual teacher from Peru. And he introduced me to the sacred ways of the Andes and also provided a doorway through which I've gained an enormous appreciation for native wisdom traditions. Through Don Americo, I've also become involved with the Quero people of the Andes. They live at high altitude on a mountain in the Cusco region of Peru. They're known as the guardians of the ancient traditions, and to this day, they still maintain the purity of those traditions. Shortly after meeting Don Americo for the very first time, I traveled down to Palenque, which is in the Chiapas region of Mexico, near Guatemala. While visiting the Maya complex there called Palenque, I noticed that there were some native people there selling their wares, the Lacandon Maya. And what I was to learn about them was that no one is really sure about their origins. Some anthropologists say that they fled from the Yucatan, escaping the conquistadores when the conquistadores came. And others of them believe that the Lacandon Maya are actually the descendants of the people who built Palenque and the nearby complexes like Yaxchilan and Bonampak. There are a couple of things that are certain. Their appearance and the forms of their sacred rituals set them apart from the other Maya. They look very different, and their practices are very different. And another thing that's certain is that their traditions are in grave danger of complete decimation. Over the years, I began to bring Western people down to these regions to be with the native people so that they too could develop an appreciation like I have about the teachings that run through these traditions. And we found that they are actually very life-transforming experiences. Then in 2007, Kenosis Spirit Keepers was founded as a nonprofit organization that seeks to help preserve those native traditions that are in danger of extinction. Through our programs, we bring native people together in small groups to share traditions, to reconnect. And we're particularly focused right now on bringing the Hopi people from northern Arizona down to be with the Quechua people of Peru and the Lacandon Maya of Chiapas, Mexico. For the Hopi in particular, this provides in part a recreation for them of their ancient migration paths, and they found that to be quite important. And we've been told that through these connections, these sharings of these cultures, the people that have been involved have found a renewal of spiritual energy and a recommitment to their own practices. There is a thread that I've found that runs through these experiences and through these ancient ways that could be called one world wisdom. What I'd like to do is to have you kind of metaphorically travel with me around to the other side of the world. And last August, just about this time, I had been invited to come to Bali. And the Bali Institute for Global Renewal was putting on a conference where there were about 25 countries that were represented. And these are people that came together because they had a common vision about what the world could be, what we could get back to. And they wanted to see it happen now. I had been invited there to put on a workshop and to help facilitate a track called Language of the Soul. And about the second day of that conference, I was hanging out in this open air pavilion where people tend to congregate and just really enjoying the beauty that was there. And I had some literature out particularly about the work that we were doing down with the Lacandon with Don Antonio Martinez, who is, listen to this, the last spirit keeper of the Lacandon Maya who adheres to his ancient traditions. This is centuries and centuries old, and he is the last one because of the outside influences from Western culture that have made their way into this rainforest community. So I was standing there and just enjoying myself and talking to people, and there was this young man that came up to me, and he started telling me about, he'd seen the literature, and he was interested, in particular, had other literature out there, but he was particularly interested in Don Antonio, and that Don Antonio was the very last one. And what he said to me was, do you think it's time for some traditions to die so the next thing can come along? And I have to tell you that his words just hit me like a shockwave. And immediately, my mind was just filled with these images and the feelings that I was having about these images. And right away, my mind went back and relived the time earlier that year, last year, where we had been with Don Antonio in Naha, in this tiny little village that was the last holdout of their traditions. And how we were with him in his God house as he had his God pots there, lighting the copal, praying over them, chanting over them, and they have a pantheon of gods. And he had brought out the god, the principal deity, and he had brought out another one to welcome us. And you have to understand what an honor this was, because I think that other than anthropologists who have been in there, I happen to know that we were the very first spiritual seekers that had ever been in this village to participate in these rituals. So it was an incredible honor. And those images were just something to me. The evidence of the god pots, they burn the copal and the residue is left over. And there had been evidence of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these ceremonies because the god pots were full to overflowing with the residue left over from the copal. What he needed to do was to retire those god pots. They have a special burial cave for the god pots, and renew that practice by making more and bringing them in. But when asked why he hadn't done that, he said that, that since there was a road coming through the village, that there was just too much noise. There was just too much noise, and it was an affront to the gods. Now, as we were there, I have to tell you, and I know that some of you have been in Naha with me, and it's very quiet compared to what we live with every day, and yet that was still an affront to the gods. The thing that I really, I guess, admire and respect about the Lacandon tradition is that they have an experience and a belief about inclusion rather than exclusion. And the inclusion, as an example, has to do with, hundreds of years ago when the Jesuits showed up and they had stories of Jesus Christ. Now, the Lacandon didn't try to exclude Jesus Christ. What they did was that they included him. And now they have a god called Akanto, which is the god of the foreigners, which is included in the pantheon of god pots that they pray over and so on. Another image that came to me in almost a split second after that one had to do with the Quero up in Peru, down in Peru, but up in the Andes. These people are the descendants of the Inca priest class, that when the conquistadores came all those years ago to Cusco, that they fled Cusco and they went to live at 17,000 feet to isolate themselves so that their traditions could remain pure. And we are so fortunate that they come down and have ceremony with us. And my memory came around sitting in circle with the Quero Pacos, the shamans, and other members of the community, and participating in the despacho ceremony, which is a blessing ceremony. And always, I look around the circle of the travelers that come with me, and I see the effect that it has on them. Some of it's real subtle, and some of it's really dramatic, but the effect is there. And this year, we brought with us Hopi Elder, Harold Joseph, which was indeed a delight. And he was definitely there representing his people to make those connections again with the native people down in Peru. And when we do these travels down there, one of the places that we go to is we go to Don Americo's ancestral home. It's called Salka Wasi. What that means in Quechua is the house, the home of undomesticated energy. It's about 5 hours outside of Cusco, and it's at the base of the Moyamarca Indian village, and there's nothing else around but that. And we stay there for a period of time and have festivities with the Moyamarca villagers. And Harold, the Hopi Elder, what really comes to mind is how throughout our travels, and we just got back a few weeks ago, is that periodically he would say to the Moyamarca villagers or to the Quero things like, "You are my brothers and sisters. I am so proud of you that you are tending the earth, that you are caring for the earth in this way, that you're tending your crops, when so many of my people have fallen away from our ways. And when I'm at home and I pray for rain for my corn, I pray for your corn." And going back to the question that this young man in Bali very innocently asked me, do you think it's time for some traditions to die so the next thing can come along? You know, I absorbed the ultimate meaning of all of that, and when I did, it's as though something welled up in my heart, this incredible sadness. And what I said to him was, the thought of that happening hurts my very soul. I understand about cycles, I understand about seasons, I understand about death and rebirth and renewal, all of those things. I work with transition every day. But it is not time for those traditions to return to the ether. Not yet, at any rate. You know, these are people that touch the earth. They live close to it. They understand the connection of all things. They know about energy. They know about sharing in community and global consciousness. When travelers come down with us to these places, these hidden places from our culture, what they find for maybe the first time in their lives is a sense of stillness, how to open, and to experience what's truly important, what truly matters. Now, from Western eyes, traditional Western eyes, and you look at these people and you would think that they are so poor, that they don't have anything. But I can tell you that they are so much richer than we are, from my standpoint. They are so much richer. We are hungry for these aspects that they have, and they probably take them for granted, just like we take certain things for granted, you know. So this year in our travels down in Peru, we went to this incredible place, and I've been there many, many times. It's called Aramamaru. And it's in the Puno region. It happens to be outside of the city of Puno at some distance, and it's known as the legendary entrance to Lemuria. Probably most of you have heard of Atlantis. So this is the sister lost civilization, Lemuria to Atlantis. And every time that I go into this area, we kind of hike in, and it's like some kind of primeval world. You know, these rock formations that are spiking up into the sky. It looks like, you know, remember the Wizard of Oz and those flying monkeys? It looks like those monkeys could just come winging in at any moment, you know. It's like that. And you look all around, and there are these huge stones that look like animals, that they're just caught there. Now, if you climb up high enough in these rock formations at Aramamaru, then beyond that you can see Lake Titicaca, which is where the origins, legend has it, the origins of the first Inca arose from Lake Titicaca. It's a huge, huge lake. And beyond that you can see Bolivia and the very high mountains of Bolivia, and then covered deeply in snow. So I climbed up to one of those very high places and settled in to do some meditation, gazed out over that vast miles there for a few moments, and then closed my eyes. And within a few minutes I heard the sound of some small rocks falling, you know, got my attention. And I looked in that direction, and I saw Harold, the Hopi elder who was with us. And he was climbing up this narrow ledge that was fairly near to me. And when I saw that he was safe, I just closed my eyes again and I went back to my meditating. But then soon I heard his voice, and he has this incredible resonant voice, you know, and it was just booming out through the thin air. And he was praying in Hopi. Now my mind doesn't understand that language, but I can tell you that my heart did. My heart understood perfectly what he was saying, and there was something in the resonance of his words and the reverberations that were going out that invited me to engage in that prayer with him. And when I merged into the words that he spoke, there was this wash of emotion that just went through me, opened my heart, and tears rolled down my cheeks. And it was so incredibly sweet, that moment.
Yan ang itari ima timwe paswang na ang moti makan tamang tatim tuat aknub na ya.
In the Andes, they have a model of the world. They talk about the right side and the left side of life. And the right side of life has to do with our everyday world. You know, just like the chairs that you're sitting on, any kind of analysis, any thoughts of the mind, any hierarchy, any technique, anything like that. That's what they call the right side. The left side, that's where the mystery is. That's where the salka is, the undomesticated energy. That's where intent is, that they talk about in The Secret and all those other books that you hear. That's where intent lives. That's where creation happens, the left side. How do we, in our culture, first of all, touch the left side in such a way that we can maintain the salka, the undomesticated energy, that we can maintain that within us, the visceral awareness of interconnection, and that it moves in us in such a way that it comes out in our everyday right-sided life, and it elevates consciousness globally. I believe that this is our work. That's our work. I fully believe that if we honor these indigenous traditions, if we are willing to sit in circle, engage in ritual, take part, then we touch something that is absolutely timeless. We're injected. A transmission takes place that it gets integrated into who we are and just comes out into the world. And when we hold sacred witness, which I believe is so important for these spirit keepers, who mostly their role is a very thankless one. I can tell you that in their own cultures, they're not honored. They're not honored. The Q'ero are not honored by the majority culture in Peru. The Lacandon Maya, Don Antonio Martinez, is not honored by the majority culture in Mexico. But if people like you and I can hold sacred witness to them and support those traditions in that way, then something about them lives on. When enough of us are engaged in that way, then maybe it's time for those traditions to disappear into the ether. But that's hardly yet, is it? That's hardly yet. You know, maybe it's easier for folks to kind of ignore all this, to encapsulate ourselves, to stick our head in the sand. And I can tell you that my soul will not let me. I ascribe to the words of Chonkin Viejo. Chonkin Viejo was the last great spiritual leader of the Lacandon Maya. He lived in Naha, which was the last holdout. And he passed in the late 90s, and people don't know exactly how old he was, but he was somewhere between 105 and 116, and fathered his last child at 100. He is the father-in-law of Don Antonio that I spoke about. I ascribe to his words, and I want to offer them to you. The roots of all things are connected. When a tree is cut in the forest, a star falls in the sky.
Mayang momoya mamant piput pas o ya kyang piputak kachit pawasyo pantakat itam pio an ancha wuwan kya kyang huyuk kya kyang itam pio ya pup pio pek kiwetan piput nit kya kyang yan itam tenat ya yang pa ancha pio yang kami tits kwa yukwa pavan pang ancha ane yukna yak piang sa katalawan sihtalawan piamang itapok popkot yeskam pang imasoi hite ponini totakam piu pantakan ayurike tuat halaitotin ang timoy putak ancha tuat nawungintan sosrem halaikyaken pang ancha ima tutuvusis piu tuat ang tuat timoy piu oye piu putak ang halaikyaken piu wuhak aniutok piu ancha yan ima ang toti mong vit piu ang tuat pumay ang halayan yang kak piu tam tuat sikuya mo piu kiwayak pu tam piu putak piu tuat itamo ang kwangtiwis ni piu ak tam sishohong vit hapi yeswan yan itam nano pu ima kwate yang mam kiwa ang piu tuat timo oye piu na pa putak tam piu tuat ancha putak puhalal wak yah puma piu tam tuat kamatabi wis yan hapi itam nano tam uvi sunu nang tute pa pasyehitam hapi itaatina ja häpi aupai pujurikiani. Uvi tamongam lolmasana ja vitamu jomekapi taatimu amam sukkiavat sinum ahakami taakatsi hapitam naavukiawintani pajantani.